All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to become data detectives. We're opening up that special utility belt every analyst needs to turn a huge mountain of raw data into a story that actually makes sense.
I mean, that's the big question, right? Data is absolutely everywhere. But on its own, it's really just noise. The real magic happens when you find the signal, the story that's hiding inside all those numbers. And to do that, you need the right set of tools.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through the 3 essential tools in any data detective's kit. We'll start with the foundation, spreadsheets. Then, we'll see how to really scale things up with SQL. And finally, we'll get to the fun part, telling the story with data visualization, before we put the whole thing together.
Okay, first up, the one tool that's pretty much the universal starting point for any data journey, the spreadsheet. It's the perfect place to begin because it lets you get your hands on the data, to really see it, touch it, and start to figure out what you're actually working with.
The real power of a spreadsheet is just how simple its structure is. Everything, is built on just 3 basic ideas. You've got your vertical columns, which get letters, your horizontal rows, which get numbers, and the little box where they meet, which we call a cell. So when someone says cell D3, you know exactly where they're pointing.
And the workflow is just as straightforward. First, you get your information into those cells. Then you give your columns some meaning by adding headers, which in data speak we call attributes. And once everything's all labeled up, you can start organizing it, like sorting a column to see if any interesting patterns pop out.
And boom, here's what you get. A nice, clean, organized table. Each column header, like first name or siblings, that's an attribute. And each row, that's what analysts call an observation. It's one complete set of details for a single entry, like for Willa Stein here. This is exactly what makes spreadsheets so great. They're amazing for organizing these clear, manageable sets of data.
But there's always a but, isn't there? What happens when you're not just dealing with a handful of rows, but thousands or even millions? Well, all of a sudden, your trusty spreadsheet starts to chug, and trying to organize anything manually becomes basically impossible.
And this is exactly where you need to level up your toolkit. This is where SQL, or Structured Query Language, comes into play. It's the language data analysts use to talk to these massive databases and pull out exactly what they're looking for, usually in just a few seconds. Think of it this way. Using a spreadsheet is kind of like sorting a single deck of cards by hand. SQL, on the other hand, is like telling a supercomputer to instantly find every single ace in a million decks of cards. It's that huge leap from manual work to these powerful, automated requests that can even link different data sets together to find hidden connections.
And don't let the name intimidate you. The source material for this explainer uses a fantastic analogy. Using SQL is just like ordering food from a super fast restaurant. You place a very specific order, what we call a query, and the database brings you exactly what you asked for, almost instantly. So yeah, that order you place is called a query. And it is the fundamental concept in SQL. It's just a structured request that you write to ask the database for specific information. It's how you talk to it, how you ask all your questions.
And the structure of a basic query is incredibly consistent. You use the keyword select to name the columns you want, you use from to say which table they're in, and then you use where to filter the results based on your conditions. Select these columns from this table where this thing is true. It's a simple, powerful, and ridiculously fast way to get answers.
So, you've organized your data in a spreadsheet, or you've queried a massive database with SQL. You've got your numbers. So, now what? Well, this is the final, and maybe the most crucial step, turning that analysis into an actual insight. It's all about choosing the right visual, a bar chart, a line chart, whatever, to tell the story. Remember that food analogy we used? Well, if gathering and cleaning your data is the main course, then visualization is the dessert. It's the satisfying, memorable part of the whole meal that really makes the biggest impression on people. To really understand the power of a good visualization, let's look at a pretty amazing historical example. You've probably heard the name Florence Nightingale, but I bet you don't think of her as a data analyst. Yep, it's true. More than 150 years ago, during the Crimean War, Nightingale was doing more than just nursing. She was actively using data to save lives. She saw that a staggering number of soldiers were dying, and she needed to understand why. And what she discovered was absolutely shocking. Most of the soldiers weren't dying in combat. They were dying from preventable diseases because of terrible sanitation. Now, to convince a bunch of skeptical officials, she didn't just hand them a table of numbers. No, she created a powerful chart, a lot like this one.
That huge slice right there, representing preventable deaths, made the problem completely impossible to ignore.
The impact was immediate. Her visualization was so clear, so compelling, that it led directly to massive reforms in hospital sanitation, and it ended up saving countless lives. That is the power of telling a good story with your data.
Okay, so let's bring it all back together. We've looked at 3 different tools, but the key thing to remember is that they're not used in a vacuum. They form a complete, cohesive toolkit for any data detective.
Here's how it all fits together, right? You use spreadsheets to get in there and explore smaller data sets. You use SQL to pinpoint and pull specific info out of massive ones. And then you use data visualization to communicate what you've found, turning all that complex analysis into a clear, compelling story that people can actually understand.
So go ahead and think of yourself as that ace data detective. Spreadsheets, SQL, and data visualization, these are the essential tools in your utility belt. Each one has a very specific job, and they're all ready to help you crack whatever case the data throws at you.
You now have the fundamental toolkit. The ability to organize, to query, and to visualize is really the foundation for turning raw information into meaningful change. So the only real question left is, what story is hiding in your data, just waiting to be told?